ARMS patch 3.2 is finally live and brought with it quite a few quality of life changes as well as a couple minor new features. Being able to easily view your recent replays is pretty cool, and I have nothing bad to say about the badge system, but the biggest new feature they added here has really fallen short. The lackluster Grand Prix mode has had fans of the game complaining since the game's launch, and while I admire the fact that they are trying to tend to the things that people care about, they're really not doing a good job of it at all. While letting the devs know that we're unhappy is the first step to change, many people complain a lot but never offer any solutions to remedy the problem. I think the concept of Grand Prix mode is complete generic trash, and I brainstormed a few ideas here that could make the ARMS single player experience playable. Throughout gaming history, console fighting games have rarely had a solid single-player experience. I think the main reason for this is that the genre found its start on arcade machines, which were based around pulling quarters out of people for some quick but fun and fast-paced gameplay. It's almost as if fighting game developers look at a single-player story as obsolete. No one expects it, and no one ever does it right, so why even try to focus on it? I definitely understand this way of thinking, but to really innovate the genre and get people buying your game, you have to push the limits. One of the best single-player fighter campaigns that comes to mind is Mortal Kombat. I wouldn't really call the Mortal Kombat campaigns innovative, but they have been perfecting this formula of simple storytelling since the 90s. The basic idea of these campaigns and ARMS' Grand Prix mode are essentially the same. You fight your way through the entire roster of characters, climbing in difficulty until you fight a boss character. The difference here, though, is a big cohesive story that brings all the characters and stages together. Mortal Kombat does in no way have stellar writing or character development, but there's always at least a semi-interesting story, and most importantly, an overarching purpose to keep you intrigued. In the two most recent, and definitely the best Mortal Kombat games, you sort of bounce from character to character as they interact with each other, and travel all across an established universe. There's detailed cutscenes that lead you from one fight to the next, which helps make it feel like you're not just fighting enemy after enemy in a mindless fashion. Through this, you not only get to learn the characters' playstyles and personalities, but you also get a story for each playable stage as well. In addition to this, Mortal Kombat games will usually gate some type of exclusive content behind completing the story mode on certain difficulties. This doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it certainly increases the replayability quite a bit, at least initially. One thing the ARMS team did great was create a very unique roster of characters. You can really get an idea of each character's personality through their minor dialogue and just through their expressions and playstyles. I know that they could make an interesting story if they actually utilized these personalities they created. Even if the Grand Prix mode had an overarching plot or just 30-second cutscenes to introduce each character instead of just a picture of the stage and a small introduction from Biff with no voice acting, I think a lot of people would have received it better. I was really happy to see Dark Horse Comics announce that they'd be releasing an ARMS comic series next year, and I'm still really excited to read them to see how these characters will interact with each other. I just think they could have, and still could, lay a little more groundwork for these stories, with just a little more in-game story or a few simple cutscenes. Another fighting game with a great single-player campaign is Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. This actually just came out for the Switch, and I definitely recommend picking it up if you haven't already. Not only does this game have an interesting story, but the game's unique hub world concept really makes it stand out from every other game in the genre. There's this main city hub where you'll start most of your story missions, and also a few other hub type zones where you're not fighting, you're just exploring and upgrading your character. This main hub world also functions as the main menu, with a few buildings in the city leading to the local and online battles respectively. Dragon Ball is sort of spoiled in that they already had a rich story to reap from, but I think that ARMS could have had a good fleshed out story through a similar concept. I could also relate this hub world concept to Splatoon, in that there are very little menus and there's a place where you can hang out in between the actual fighting. Imagine a hub world in the ARMS headquarters, where you can run around as your favorite character, and for the story, you could go around and recruit all the other characters from their main worlds, and thus see all their respective stages in the story. You'd have to beat each character to recruit them, and it would only require some short introductory cutscenes that could show off the personality of each character and maybe the personality of their home world as well. Throughout the story of recruiting these characters, maybe you'd run across something like Springtron to give that feeling of an overarching common enemy in the story. Then after recruiting all the characters, you come back to base and face Max Brass to reach some sort of rank in the ARMS organization now that you recruited all these people. And then when you're facing Max Brass, Headlock shows up and really tries to screw things up, but you beat him. This sounds pretty simple because it is, but it would really go miles in the vein of making the ARMS story a little more attractive. A single-player campaign like this, along with the hub world instead of a menu, would really help flesh out the ARMS story and make a fun, single-player experience. If you've played Splatoon before, you know how big of a difference this hub world makes in playing the game. Logging into Splatoon feels like I'm entering another dimension, and I really wish ARMS felt like the same. Nintendo has already done this for one game, why not make it a theme and extend it over to ARMS? I know the experience I just described is probably too much for them to add in a free update, but like I said, even just adding voice-acted cutscenes to introduce each character would make a huge difference for me. And even if my hub world and modified story concept doesn't make it into the first game, it could still be a great concept for ARMS 2. I remember thinking day one when I picked this game up that the actual gameplay concept is so great, and now they just gotta perfect it over the next year or so and then come out with a perfect version with ARMS 2. They really have laid some good groundwork to tell an interesting story, they just need to do a better job of executing the next steps. I'm pretty sure that ARMS will forever be my favorite game for the Switch. Nintendo made their agenda clear with Splatoon that they were going to take popular competitive genres and make them their own. Rather than port over Battlefield or Call of Duty World War 46 or whatever, they innovated the genre and came out with a shooter game that was nothing like anything that had come out before. They really continued this tenfold with ARMS by creating a completely new method of the actual fighting in a fighting game and made it more addicting than any of its previous competitors. This is why I can look past the shortcomings such as the Grand Prix mode, because I know they've started the ball rolling by nailing this core gameplay, and now they just need a few other minor features under control to make this the perfect fighting title. If you have any ideas about what could make the ARMS single player experience a little better, let me know down in the comments. I cover a lot of games on this channel, but ARMS is one of those that I really care about, and I'd love to discuss any thoughts that you have with you. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel for the latest Switch content available. This is Max from Max Culture, and thank you for watching.